And when you open it on chapter 8, and then I think you have to turn to the next page where we have before this, before step 1, we have a list of 5. I think it's over here, no? 5. Let's see that maybe over here, yeah.
The steps you
Yeah,
will
on the right,
okay.
no, on the right of
Mhm.
your screen. Exactly. Yeah. So, Abby, please, I need you to read these 5 steps that you will follow in developing assessment task template. Now, this is crucial, no? It says in el manual, no? What you have to do, please.
Okay, the first one says select a TLU task that might serve as a basis for developing assessment tasks. To describe this TLU task, 3, modify the TLU task to provide the basis for an assessment task template. 4, develop a method for recording the student's performance for the assessment task template. Finally, we have the evaluate the assessment task, the template in terms of assessment qualities of meaningfulness, generalizability,
Flexibility.
impartiality, consistency, and practicality. Practicality.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and the last part also, please.
Okay,
With respect. No?
with respect to practicality, we would point out that although developing an assessment task template may seem like a lengthy process, it does not need to be repeated for every assessment you developed. Chapter 9, we discuss ways in which multiple assessment can be created from a single assessment task template.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry, I wanted to close the door because there's some noise outside. Thank you, Abby. Okay. So as you can see, those are the steps, no, that you have to follow. Great. And what you have in the last paragraph is very important to remark, no? To remark. Yeah. So at the beginning, it might be tiring, lengthy, as you can see there. No? The process might be lengthy because you will be find yourself tired. But the good thing is that once you have this template, you can adapt it to other to create multiple assessment tasks. Right. So we're going to see this now steps, these 5 steps, no, step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in detail. Well, hopefully we can see steps 1, 2, and 3 maybe tonight. Okay, and then maybe 4, you can see 4 and 5, or whatever is left uncovered and unfinished. You can cover for Thursday, no, for Thursday. Yeah, because now, of course, you want to have a complete understanding of all the process involved. Great. So the first step is using TLU tasks, no, target language use tasks, to develop assessment task templates. No? So if we can go to the next page, so that students can see this. Please, thank you. Thank you. And TLU tasks, using TLU tasks to develop. Yeah. In chapter 9. Yeah. The author suggests that if you want to if you have time, you can look at chapter 9, no? Chapter 9. So for a better understanding, for expanding your understanding of task templates. No? Yeah. So the first step is selecting a TLU task. No? Yeah. So basically here, you have to decide, no? Those assessment tasks that elicit performance from students that you can interpret as evidence of the ability that you want to assess. No? So paraphrasing this, you want to use tasks that are a reflection, no? Or that will give you evidence that your students can master that aspect of the language, you know, that you have covered in I don't know, in the unit or in the bimester or whatever kind of test it is, no, that you're using. Great, great, great. Okay, and so this, no, as you can read here also, this will provide support for your claim about the meaningfulness of your interpretation. So it has to do with the concept of meaningfulness. You have also, sorry, yeah, in claim 3, you have also identified the TLU domain to which you want your interpretation of ability to generalize. So by selecting a language use task from that TLU domain, you would provide support for your claim about the generalizability of your interpretations. No? So basically with number 1, you want to cover these two qualities, no? Generalizability and meaningfulness. No? And so the steps here, no, the steps in step 1, I mean, you would provide, no, 2 things: a short descriptive label for the TLU task and a short descriptive label for the area of language ability that is engaged by the TLU task. No? In most cases, the label will be the same, no? The same that you have used in claim 3 when you defined the ability to be assessed. Okay, so in the next chart, we have an example, no? Here you have a practical example taken from page 169. No? Here's here's an example task from here. No, well, in the book corresponde a page 169. Well, of course, in this format is different, but in 169 the reference is let me see here, 169. An example of assessment tasks. No? Example assessment tasks. The example is about speaking, describing animals, young learners, beginning level. Yeah, it's on page 169, but the reference is that it's in the next chapter, in the chapter number 11, no? Chapter 11, if you want to see that. Great, okay. So here, for example, no, is an extracto of the template and for speaking assessment task. So what you see here is, for example, in the first element, you know, in the short description, the short descriptive label for the TLU task, you have this, no? Describing animals orally in groups in the language classroom. That's what students have to do. No? And then in the areas of ability, no? In areas of ability, you have using accurate grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation in speech. So here you are being more specific about what you want what you want your students to master, no? To be able to cope with this activity, no? Or with this task, no? With this task. For example, here is grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, no? For speaking, no? Or in speaking. You can see here. Great. Okay. Yeah. So basically, I know that maybe we didn't know these terms or these procedures before, no, with these names, but it's basically what we do in our quizzes, no, what we do in our assessments, no. We, for example, we describe exactly what the students have to do, no. Okay. And then maybe as a more internal document, no, in your records, you have the you keep record of what areas of ability, language ability, the students have to display. No, well, sometimes you keep that more in your language planning, your lesson planning, but it's what we do. No? But now you know that it's all part of a process. Great. Okay. So before going on to step 2, I want to ask. I want to see. I want to hear some answers regarding the question that I asked you at the end of the first session. Can you can you talk about your own experience? Have you realized, have you stopped to think about how it is that you are creating your assessments, or maybe you're just using the assessments that come in the book? So I want to know about your experience. How do you elaborate your assessments, no? Your language assessments, and maybe more particularly, your language assessment tasks, ¿no? Tasks, o sea, cada ítem que deciden poner para una prueba, ¿no? How do you elaborate this? How do you come to this conclusion? No? Please, volunteers. No?
Prof.
Yes, please.
Well, I consider that when you are doing or when you try to assess your students, first of all, when you are doing your task, you have to consider the maybe the grammar or something that they have they had to learn from your class. When I had the opportunity to maybe make a quiz, I prefer just to write some questions related maybe to the grammar, but not just like fill in the blank, something like that. No, I prefer just to take into account maybe comprehension, something about comprehension, maybe some dialogues that they need to develop, maybe the grammar, they need to develop their skills. So I consider that we have to take into account maybe some questions related to comprehension.
Comprehension too, no? Great.
Yes.
And do you, yeah, and if you think, about one particular assessment or la generalidad of your assessment, do you feel that your assessments contain these 5 qualities? For example, are they meaningful? Are they generalizable, impartial, consistent, and practical? What do you think?
Well, I consider it depends, because I think that each question maybe could have one of these characteristics, but I don't consider that the assessment that I did before had all of these steps. But now that we have learned something new, in my case, well, I consider that every time that I want to make an assessment, that I want to assess my student, that I want to make a quiz, I have to consider all those things,
Yes.
because each questions have to be meaningful, and I consider that we as teachers we don't have to be just like it says that we have to do this in the book, so we have just to do.
Yeah,
No, because we have to work properly, I
exactly.
consider.
Yes. Okay.
Mhm.
Great. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I liked what you said at the end. No. That we don't have to use everything that is in the book. No? Actually, many of the things that are in the book are only things that digamos, the editorials no, decide to put there. Sometimes they put a lot of things just to complete the number of pages that each section should have. No, let's not forget that in elaborating these textbooks, no, in elaborating these course books, editorials don't take into consideration all these, how can I say, no? All these aspects, no, that we, for example, when we study, when we are teachers, we know, no. For example, first, okay, a good course book should be designed by experts in teaching, no? Okay, psychologists, linguists, and all those people, right? But many times it's no, it's just a bunch of people that are good editors, are good. Of course, they're good with the language, no. But many times you even find mistakes in books, no. So of course you can't trust everything that is in the book, and you can't believe that everything that is in the book is perfect, no, because many times they only take two or three isolated items and they put them on the last page because they need to have a certain number of pages for each unit, no. And so sometimes they put this ponen estos para llenar, no, these fillers, no, at the end, no. They just put a filler because they need one more page, or they need half a page to for the book to look nice, no, in the display, no? And so yeah, I liked what you said, no. Our responsibility is to elaborate assessment tasks that are meaningful, no, generalizable, etc. Okay, because we want our students to demonstrate that they know, no, that they know what we have taught. And if they don't know what we have taught, then you can start, for example, the review program. You can start the tutoring. You can address the these problems, no, to different in different channels, no, en diferentes canales, no. You can direct them. You can refer some students for extra classes, etc. But the point is that the students learn. No? Otherwise, I mean, why are we spending so much time, wasting our time, if we are not going to assess our students and make sure that they know before they pass? No? Well, unfortunately, in our system, we know that the system in schools is designed for students to pass, no matter what, no, because if students don't pass, then you have more work to do, no. So we know that. So at least, no, for students to know that it's going to be tough, no? It's going to take a lot of work to pass. So from day one, from week one, you elaborate assessment tasks that students find interesting, no, and also a little difficult, no? So they know that you're going to be preparing tasks, assessment tasks, and you're going to be administering them every certain time. Okay, but in the end, if all students are to pass, because the government decides that everybody should pass, or the authorities decide that everybody should pass, then okay, let them pass. But at least you know that you have done everything in your power, you know, to teach and then to assess what was taught. No, so yeah, that's what a good professional should do. No, great. And so great. I'm happy you mentioned that. Now that you know this, no, it's of course knowing that this is very important. No? The least that you can do is to consider, no? If not all, at least most of these elements in your next assessments or quizzes, or como le llamemos, no? Exams, no? Or at least, for example, no? If you can use all 5, but at least 2 or 3 crucial elements are, for example, meaningfulness, no? Consistency, consistency in the records, no? And of course you want to have practical, no? Because you don't want to spend all weekend correcting your students, no? Marking their tests. Thank you very much. Okay, so can we have somebody else, please, telling us their experience in elaborating assessment tasks?
Prof.
Yes, please.
Well, in my case, when I was working with children, I prefer to use the tasks from the book, because these tasks are related with the information that they are checking during a period of time. So I consider that if they have, if the children are familiarized, I don't know if it's right,
Yes,
with,
familiarized. Yes.
with the information, they can develop in a right way. That's
Yes.
according my experience.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. No, thank you very much. Yeah, of course. No, we want to use things that are related to what has been taught in class. No, that's maybe our first consideration. Huh? Because when the students find new material, they complain. No, they say no, but you said to study everything in the book, but this material is new. Yes. So of course we should consider that. No, however, and that's what the assessment task template is for. No, justo para eso es el assessment task template. The idea is that you take a good assessment task, you know, or even if you want that you take a good activity, vamos a llamarle roughly, you know, in the first stages. No, you take a good activity that you did in class, right? You make some changes in the labeling, in the description, etc., and you make it into a good assessment task, no? That you can use in a language assessment, or por decirlo así, or in a quiz, or in a test, right? Okay, and then what you do is you register this information, you keep record of this information in the assessment task template, no? Giving it, for example, this short descriptive label, language ability description also of the task, etc., and the next steps now that we are going to see. So all this is your backing, no? Es como el respaldo que uno tiene to guarantee that the task is productive, no? That even if the students don't see it at that moment, no? Maybe they only go under the stress, no? But you know that doing the test is also productive, and is also another opportunity for students to keep learning, no? To keep learning. So yeah, but thanks for mentioning that, no? From real experience, no? Thank you very much. Great. And so now, so let's go on to step number 2. No, step number 2 here. Step 1 was here. I don't know if I did. Yeah, exactly. No? Describing. Where's number 2? I think I missed it. I think it's on the next page. Yeah, over here. Great, thank you. Yeah, describing TLU tasks. No. Yeah, and so I'm going to ask Hugo. Can you read this section? Step 2, up to right before the chart that we have on the next page, please.
Okay.
Step 2, describing TLU tasks.
Yeah, step 2, describe the TLU tasks that you have identified in step 1. Describe A, the activities and procedures to be followed. B, the thesis of the TLU task.
Yeah, and can you read what is before at the beginning on the other page?
Yeah.
On the left? On the left.
Yeah, okay. Step 2, describing TLU task. In order to justify your claim to generalizability, you need to demonstrate that your assessment task correspond to TLU tasks. To determine how well your assessment task corresponded to TLU task, you need to be able to describe these tasks. You will do this in 2 ways. Describe the activities and procedures to be followed, and describe the thesis of the TLU task. Step 2. Yeah, what I read. Yeah.
Continue, but read it again, please.
The step 2, describe the TLU task that you have identified in step 1. Describe A, the activities and procedures to be followed, and B, the thesis of the TLU task.
Yeah, and step 2A, do you have that? Step 2A, describing activities and procedures.
Procedures. Describing activities and procedures of the TLU task is illustrated in table 8.1.
8.1. Thank you very much. No. Okay, so again, no, we keep our mind set on this. No, the claim of generalizability. No, generalizability. So as the author says here, you need to demonstrate that your assessment task corresponds to the target language use task. No. So in other words, no, your task needs to have this component, no, that is target language use, no, es decir, que esté direccionada a que desarrolle el idioma objeto de estudio, for example, English, no, in this case, no. So of course, no, now it seems logical. No, you're teaching English, you want to use an assessment from the book, and so obviously you think that it's the target language used. But sometimes you can take some tests from various teachers from various schools, and sometimes you find inconsistencies here. No, you have, for example, some material in the book, and some teachers from some schools, because they don't know the procedure, or sometimes they don't even know English properly, they propose activities that have nothing to do with the target language, no? Or and so that's okay. That's why this step 2 is important, no? To describe that. To determine how well your assessment task corresponds to TLU tasks, you need to be able to describe these tasks properly. And you have an example here, no, in the chart that you see here. And so we have 2 things that we have to describe. No? A, the activities and procedures to be followed in detail. No? Okay. And B, the task characteristics. Now remember that TCs are the task characteristics of the TLU task. And so we have here an example, no? In regard with number 1, activities that and procedures to be followed. For example, here, no? Teacher explains the speaking activity to the class. No? For example, with these 3 sub steps. No? Each group will get a picture of an animal to describe. Group members will describe parts of their animal orally to the class, and the other students in the class will try to guess which animal group has, the group has. So it's a complete description of the task, the procedures, activities and procedures. Then in part B, students are arranged in groups of 3 to 4. The teacher gives each group a picture of an animal and tells the students not to show their picture to the other groups. Students work on a description of animals in their groups, taking notes as required. Then the teacher moves around and helps groups. Each student in each group has about half a minute to present a part of their group's description orally to the class. The other students in the class may ask questions after each presentation and guess the animal. And then the last one, H, maybe it's on the next page. The teacher provides verbal feedback on the quality of the descriptions. The descriptions. Okay, so as you can see, you need to know exactly what the students are going to do. Okay, and when you have the day, or when you have the students have the actual assessment, you need to explain this clearly to your students. And if it's written, you write as much information as possible to help them understand what they have to do, what the task is. So examples of people you can find, for example, these books. Yes. No, sorry. Well,
yes. Yes, Prof. I had an experience about this step describing activities and procedures.
Great. Yeah.
And when
thank you. Please.
Okay. Yes, because the first day that I was in the high school. Yes, in the very beginning, the first day actually, my teacher asked me that to take a quiz, a quiz related, I don't know, about science, something like that, social studies, exactly. And I didn't know how to do that because I gave them the test, but I didn't explain how to do it, about how what they were supposed to do the activity, so that was difficult. So the next time I put some the first example on the test. For example, the first exercise I was already did, in order to make students sure what they have to do. So it was I realized that it's really important to describe the activities, of course for everyone, but especially with children. So yeah, that's what I realized.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. Great, great that you mentioned this. It's related to what I was going to say also, that, for example, a good way to know exactly what to write in the description is, for example, when you have these books. Now, well, today it's not very common that people buy books, but online, when you have these books where you have, for example, these games or dynamics or group work or pair work. Now, usually in the teachers section, you have these descriptions, well, because you have the copy for students, for example, pair work. No? So you have student A has to the crossword, student B has the also the crossword, but A and B have different numbers to complete, no? And so they have to keep working, I mean, asking questions, right? Okay, so it's easy for students to understand, no? Once they have practice, that a student A has to ask a student B gives directions, and interacting, they have to complete the crossword, no? Yeah, but at the beginning, it's really complicated, no? And so, but if you read the section, la sección del autor, no? How he explains the task, that is more or less the description, no? So you can take that from the book and print it, no, in your description and practice. Well, of course, when you have years and years of experience, then you know exactly how the exercise works, no, and what the steps are. And so you said, and then have to know what you lost, no? You just can infer missing, have to make it clear, no, straight. Till you get practice, no? Good example of, for example, speaking tasks or games, for example, are these, no? Like the one described here, where students describe animals.